Hi, and welcome to Pages Aloud. We're so glad you're here. Today we're continuing our journey through the English dictionary with our continuation of the letter A. Whether you're learning, curious, or just love words, this one's for you. Let's begin. Acknow, to recognize. Acknowledged, of acknowledge. Acknowledging, of acknowledge. Acknowledge, to of or admit the knowledge of, to recognize as a fact or truth, to declare one's belief in, as to acknowledge the being of a god. Acknowledgedly, confessedly, acknowledger, one who acknowledges. Acknowledgement, the act of acknowledging, admission, avowal, owning, confession. Aclinic, without inclination or dipping, said the magnetic needle balances itself horizontally, having no dip. The aclinic line is also termed the magnetic equator. Acme, the top or highest point, the culmination. Acne, a pustular affection of the skin due to changes in the sebaceous glands. Acnodal, pertaining to acnodes. Acnode, an isolated point not upon a curve, but whose coordinates satisfy the equation of the curve so that it is considered as belonging to the curve. A cock, in a cocked or turned up fashion. A cockbill, hanging at the cat head ready to let go as an anchor. A cold, ecologic, pertaining to ecology. Ecology, materia medica, the science of remedies. Acolithist, see acolithist. Acolyctin, an organic base in the form of a white powder obtained from Aconitum lycoctonum. Acolyte, one who has received the highest of the four minor orders in the Catholic Church, being ordained to carry the wine and water and the lights at the Massachusetts. Acolyth, same as acolyte. Acolythist, an acolyte. Acondylos, alt of acondylus. Acondylus, being without joints, jointless. Aconital, of the nature of aconite. Aconite, the herb wolfsbane or monkshood, applied to any plant of the genus Aconitum, tribe Hellebore, all the species of which are poisonous. Aconitia, same as aconitine. Aconitic, of or pertaining to aconite. Aconitine, an intensely poisonous alkaloid extracted from aconite. Aconitum, the poisonous herb aconite, also an extract from it. Acontia, thread-like defensive organs composed largely of nettling cells, nidae, thrown out of the mouth or special pores of certain actiniae when irritated. Aconchus, anciently a snake called dart snake, now one of a genus of reptiles closely allied to the lizards. Acopic, relieving weariness, restorative. Acorn, the fruit of the oak being an oval nut growing in a woody cup or cupule. Acorn cup, the involucre or cup in which the acorn is fixed. Acorned, furnished or loaded with acorns. Acorn shell, one of the sessile cirripeds, a barnacle of the genus Balanus. See barnacle. Acosmism, a denial of the existence of the universe as distinct from God. A cosmist, one who denies the existence of the universe or of a universe as distinct from God. A cotyledon, a plant which has no cotyledons as the daughter and all flowerless plants. Acotyledonous, having no seed lobes as the daughter, also applied to plants which have no true seeds as ferns, mosses, etc. Acauchi, a small species of agouti, Dasaprocta acauchi. Acumeter, an instrument for measuring the acuteness of the sense of hearing. Acoumetry, the measuring of the power or extent of hearing. Acoustic, pertaining to the sense of hearing, the organs of hearing, or the science of sounds. Auditory, acoustical, of or pertaining to acoustics. Acoustically, in relation to sound or to hearing. Acoustician, one versed in acoustics. Acoustics, the science of sounds teaching their nature, phenomena, and laws. Acquaint, acquainted, acquainted, of acquaint, acquainting, of acquaint, acquaintable, easy to be acquainted with, affable. Acquaintance, a state of being acquainted or of having intimate or more than slight or superficial knowledge. Personal knowledge gained by intercourse short of that of friendship or intimacy, as I know the man, but have no acquaintance with him. Acquaintanceship, a state of being acquainted, acquaintance. Acquaintant, an acquaintance. Acquaintedness, state of being acquainted, degree of acquaintance. Acquest, acquisition, the thing gained. Acquiesced, of acquiesce. Acquiescing, of acquiesce. Acquiesce, to rest satisfied or apparently satisfied, or to rest without opposition and discontent, usually implying previous opposition or discontent. To accept or consent by silence or by omitting to object, followed by and formerly also by with and to. Acquiescence, a silent or passive assent or submission, or a submission with apparent content, distinguished from avowed consent on the one hand, and on the other from opposition or open discontent. Quiet satisfaction. Acquiescency, the quality of being acquiescent, acquiescence. Acquiescent, resting satisfied or submissive, disposed tacitly to submit. Assentive, as an acquiescent policy. Acquiescently, in an acquiescent manner. Acquiet, to quiet. Acquirability, the quality of being acquirable, attainableness. Acquirable, capable of being acquired. Acquired, of acquire. Acquiring, of acquire. Acquire, to gain usually by one's own exertions, to get as one's own, as to acquire a title, riches, knowledge, skill, good or bad habits. Acquirement, the act of acquiring or that which is acquired. Attainment. Acquirer, a person who acquires. Acquiree, acquirement. Acquisite, acquired. Acquisition, the act or process of acquiring. Acquisitive, acquired. Acquisitively, in the way of acquisition. Acquisitiveness, the quality of being acquisitive, propensity to acquire property, desire of possession. Acquisitor, one who acquires. Acquist, acquisition, gain. Acquit, acquitted, set free, rid of. Acquitted, of acquit. Acquitting, of acquit. Acquitment, acquittal. Acquittal, the act of acquitting, discharge from debt or obligation. Acquittance. Acquittance, the clearing off of debt or obligation, a release or discharge from debt or other liability. Acquitter, one who acquits or releases. Acrania, partial or total absence of the skull. Acranial, wanting a skull. Acrace, alt of acraze. Acraze, to craze. Acrasia, alt of acrazy. Acrazy, excess, intemperance. Acrospida, a group of acalyphs including most of the larger jellyfishes, the Discophora. Acre, any field of arable or pasture land. Acreable, of an acre, per acre, as the acreable produce. Acreage, acres collectively, as the acreage of a farm or a country. Acred, possessing acres or landed property, used in composition as large acred men. Acrid, sharp and harsh or bitter and not to the taste, pungent, as acrid salts. Acridity, alt of acridness. Acridness, the quality of being acrid or pungent, irritant bitterness. Acrimony, as the acridity of a plant of a speech. Acridly, in an acid manner. Acrimonious, acrid, corrosive as acrimonious gall. Acrimoniously, in an acrimonious manner. Acrimoniousness, the quality of being acrimonious. Asperity, acrimony. Acrimonies, of acrimony. Acrimony, a quality of bodies which corrodes or destroys others. Also a harsh or biting sharpness, as the acrimony of the juices of certain plants. Acrisia, alt of acrisy. Acrisy, inability to judge. Acrita, the lowest groups of animals in which no nervous system has been observed. Acritan, of or pertaining to the acrita. Acrite, acritan, acritical, having no crisis, giving no indications of a crisis, as acritical symptoms and acritical abscess. Acritochromacy, color blindness, achromatopsy. Acritude, acridity, pungency joined with heat. Acrity, sharpness, keenness. Achromatic, alt of achromatical. Achromatical, communicated orally, oral, applied to the esoteric teachings of Aristotle, those intended for his genuine disciples, in distinction from his exoteric doctrines which were adapted to outsiders or the public generally. Hence, abstruse, profound. Acrobatic, same as acromatic. Acrobat, one who practices rope dancing, high vaulting, or other daring gymnastic feats. Acrobatic, pertaining to an acrobat. Acrobatism, feats of the acrobat, daring gymnastic feats, high vaulting. Acrocarpus, having a terminal fructification, having the fruit at the end of the stalk. Acrocephalic, characterized by a high skull. Acrocephaly, loftiness of skull. Acroceronian, of or pertaining to the high mountain range of thunder-smitten peaks, now Chimera, between Epirus and Macedonia. Acrodactylum, the upper surface of the toes individually. Acrodont, one of a group of lizards having the teeth immovably united to the top of the alveolar ridge. Acrogen, a plant of the highest class of cryptogams, including the ferns, etc. See Cryptogamia. Acrogenous, increasing by growth from the extremity, as an acrogenous plant. Acrolein, a limpid, colorless, highly volatile liquid obtained by the dehydration of glycerin or the destructive distillation of neutral fats containing glycerin. Its vapors are intensely irritating. Acrolith, a statue whose extremities are of stone, the trunk being generally of wood. Acrolithin, alt of acrolithic. Acrolithic, pertaining to or like an acrolith. Acromegaly, chronic enlargement of the extremities and face. Acromial, of or pertaining to the acromion. Acromion, the outer extremity of the shoulder blade. Acromonogrammatic, having each verse begin with the same letter as that with which the preceding verse ends. Achronic, alt of a chronicle. A chronicle, rising at sunset and setting at sunrise as a star, opposed to cosmical. Achronically, in an achronical manner as rising at the setting of the sun and vice versa. Acronictus, achronical, acrook, crookedly, acropital, developing from below towards the apex or from the circumference towards the center, centripetal, set of certain inflorescence. Acrophony, the use of a picture symbol of an object to represent phonetically the initial sound of the name of the object. Acropodium, the entire upper surface of the foot. Acropolis, the upper part or the citadel of a Grecian city, especially the citadel of Athens. Acropolitan, pertaining to an acropolis. Acrospire, the sprout at the end of a seed when it begins to germinate, the plumule in germination, so called from its spiral form. Acrospore, a spore born at the extremity of the cells of fructification in fungi. Acrosporus, having acrospores. Across, from side to side, athwart, crosswise or in a direction opposed to the length. Quite over, as a bridge laid across a river. Acrostic, a composition usually in verse in which the first or the last letters of the lines or certain other letters taken in order form a name, word, phrase, or motto. Acrostical, pertaining to or characterized by acrostics. Acrostically, after the manner of an acrostic. Acrotarsium, the instep or front of the tarsus. Acrodolytic, the end of a verse or psalm or something added thereto to be sung by the people by way of a response. Acroter, same as acroterium. Acroterial, pertaining to an acroterium, as acroterial ornaments. Acroteria, of acroterium. Acroterium, one of the small pedestals for statues or other ornaments placed on the apex and at the basal angles of a pediment. Acroteria are also sometimes placed upon the gables in Gothic architecture. Acrotic, pertaining to or affecting the surface. Acrotism, lack or defect of pulsation. Acrotomous, having a cleavage parallel with the base. Acrylic, of or containing acryl, the hypothetical radical of which acrolein is the hydride, as acrylic acid. Act, that which is done or doing, the exercise of power or the effect of which power exerted is the cause, a performance, a deed. Acted, of act, acting, of act, actable, capable of being acted. Actinal, pertaining to the part of a radiate animal which contains the mouth. Actinaria, a large division of anthozoa, including those which have simple tentacles and do not form stony corals. Sometimes in a wider sense applied to all the anthozoa expert the Alcyonaria, whether forming corals or not. Actinii, of actinia. Actinius, of actinia. Actinia, an animal of the class Anthozoa and family Actinidae. From a resemblance to flowers in form and color, they are often called animal flowers and sea anemones. Sea polyp. Actinic, of or pertaining to actinism, as actinic race. Actiniform, having a radiated form like a sea anemone. Actinism, the property of radiant energy found chiefly in solar or electric light, by which chemical changes are produced, as in photography. Actinium, a supposed metal said by Phipson to be contained in commercial zinc, so called because certain of its compounds are darkened by exposure to light. Actinochemistry, chemistry in its relations to actinism. Actinograph, an instrument for measuring and recording the variations in the actinic or chemical force of rays of light. Actinoid, having the form of rays, radiated as an actinia. Actinolite, a bright green variety of amphibole occurring usually in fibrous or columnar masses. Actinolytic, of the nature of or containing actinolite. Actinology, the science which treats of rays of light, especially of the actinic or chemical rays. Actinomere, one of the radial segments composing the body of one of the coelenterida. Actinometer, an instrument for measuring the direct heating power of the sun's rays. Actinometric, pertaining to the measurement of the intensity of the solar rays, either A. heating or B. actinic. Actinometry, the measurement of the force of solar radiation. Actinophorus, having straight projecting spines. Actinosome, the entire body of a selenorate. Actinost, one of the bones at the base of a paired fin of a fish. Actinostome, the mouth or anterior opening of a selenorate animal. Actinotrocha, a peculiar larval form of Pherones, a genus of marine worms having a circle of ciliated tentacles. Actinozoa, a group of coelenterata comprising the Anthozoa and Ctenophora. The sea anemone or actinia is a familiar example. Actinozoal, of or pertaining to the actinozoa. Actinozoon, one of the actinozoa. Actinula, a kind of embryo of certain hydroids. Tubularia, having a stellate form. Action, a process or condition of acting or moving as opposed to rest, the doing of something. Exertion of power or force, as when one body acts on another. The effect of power exerted on one body by another. Agency. Activity. Operation, as the action of heat. A man of action. Actionable, that may be the subject of an action or suit at law. As to call a man a thief is actionable. Actionably, in an actionable manner. Actionary, alt of actionist. Actionist, a shareholder in joint stock company. Actionless, void of action. Activate, to make active. Active, having the power or quality of acting. Causing change, communicating action or motion. Acting, opposed to passive that receives, as certain active principles, the powers of the mind. Actively, in an active manner, nimbly, briskly, energetically, also by one's own action, voluntarily, not passively. Activeness, the quality of being active, nimbleness, quickness of motion, activity. Activities, of activity. Activity, the state or quality of being active, nimbleness, agility, vigorous action or operation, energy, active force, as an increasing variety of human activities. Actless, without action or spirit. Actin, a stuffed jacket worn under the mail, or, later, a jacket plated with mail. Actor, one who acts or takes part in any affair, a doer. Actress, a female actor or doer. Actual, involving or comprising action, active. Actualist, one who deals with or considers actually existing facts and conditions rather than fancies or theories, opposed to idealist. Actualities, of actuality. Actuality, the state of being actual, reality, as the actuality of God's nature. Actualization, in making actual or really existent. Actualize, to make actual, to realize in action. Actually, actively, actualness, quality of being actual, actuality. Actuarial, of or pertaining to actuaries, as the actuarial value of an annuity. Actuaries, of actuary. Actuary, a registrar or clerk, used originally in courts of civil law jurisdiction, but in Europe used for a clerk or registrar generally. Actuated, of actuate. Actuating, of actuate. Actuate, to put into action or motion, to move or incite to action, to influence actively, to move as motives do, more commonly used of persons. Actuation, a bringing into action, movement. Actuator, one who actuates or puts into action. Actuos, very active. Actuosity, abundant activity. Acture, action. Acturience, tendency or impulse to act. Actuate, to sharpen, to make pungent, to quicken. Actuation, act of sharpening. Actuition, the act of sharpening. Acuity, sharpness or acuteness as of a needle wit, etc. Aculeate, having a sting, covered with prickles, sharp like a prickle. Aculeated, having a sharp point, armed with prickles, prickly. Aculeate. Aculeiform, like a prickle. Aculeolate, having small prickles or sharp points. Aculeus. Aculeate. Aculei, of Aculeus. Aculeus, a prickle growing on the bark as in some brambles and roses. Acumen, quickness of perception or discernment, penetration of mind, the faculty of nice discrimination. Acuminate, tapering to a point, pointed, as acuminate leaves, teeth, etc. Acumination, a sharpening, termination in a sharp point, a tapering point. Acuminos, terminating in a flat, narrow end. Acuminous, characterized by acumen, keen. Acupressure, a mode of arresting hemorrhage resulting from wounds or surgical operations by passing under the divided vessel a needle the ends of which are left exposed externally on the cutaneous surface. Acupuncturation, see acupuncture. Acupuncture, pricking with a needle prick. Accoutrements, see accoutrements. Acutangular, acute-angled. Acute, sharp at the end, ending in a sharp point. Pointed, opposed to blunt or obtuse, as an acute angle, an acute leaf. Acute-angled, having acute angles, as an acute-angled triangle, a triangle with every one of its angles less than a right angle. Acutely, in an acute manner, sharply, keenly, with nice discrimination. Acuteness, the quality of being acute or pointed, sharpness, as the acuteness of an angle. Acutifoliate, having sharp-pointed leaves. Acutilobate, having acute lobes as some leaves. Ad dash, as a prefix ad, assumes the forms as prefixed. It remains unchanged before vowels and before dh. Adact, to compel, to drive. Adactyl, alt of adactylus. Adactylus, without fingers or without toes. Adage, an old saying which has obtained credit by long use. A proverb. Adagial, pertaining to an adage, proverbial. Adagio, slow, slowly, leisurely, and gracefully. When repeated adagio, it directs the movement to be very slow. Adam, the name given in the Bible to the first man, the progenitor of the human race. Adamant, a stone imagined by some to be of impenetrable hardness, a name given to the diamond and other substances of extreme hardness. But in modern mineralogy, it has no technical signification. It is now a rhetorical or poetical name for the embodiment of impenetrable hardness. Adamantian, of adamant, hard as adamant. Adamantine, made of adamant or having the qualities of adamant, incapable of being broken, dissolved, or penetrated, as adamantine bonds or chains. Adambulacral, next to the ambulacra, as the adambulacral ossicles of the starfish. Adamic, alt of adamical, adamical, of or pertaining to Adam or resembling him. Adamite, a descendant of Adam, a human being. Adam's apple, see under Adam. A dance, dancing. A dangle, dangling. Adansonia, a genus of great trees related to the bombax. There are two species, A. digitata, the baobab or monkey bread of Africa and India, and A. gregorii, the sour gourd or cream of tartar tree of Australia. Adapt, fitted, suited. Adapted, of adapt. Adapting, of adapt. Adaptability, alt of adaptableness. Adaptableness, the quality of being adaptable, suitableness. Adaptable, capable of being adapted. Adaptation, the act or process of adapting or fitting, or the state of being adapted or fitted, fitness. Adaptative, adaptive, adaptedness, the state or quality of being adapted, suitableness, special fitness. Adapter, one who adapts. Adaption, adaptation. Adaptive, suited, given, or tending to adaptation, characterized by adaptation, capable of adapting. Adaptiveness, the quality of being adaptive, capacity to adapt. Adaptly, in a suitable manner. Adaptness, adaptedness. Adaptorial, adaptive. Adar, the 12th month of the Hebrew ecclesiastical year and the 6th of the civil. It corresponded nearly with March. Adars, a saltish concretion on reeds and grass in marshy grounds in Galatia. It is soft and porous and was formerly used for cleansing the skin from freckles and tetters, and also in leprosy. Aditus, a fine cotton cloth of India. Adaunt, to subdue, to mitigate. Adal, to subdue, to daunt. Adays, by day or every day, in the daytime. Ad captandum, a phrase used adjectively, sometimes of meretricious attempts to catch or win popular favor. Added, of add, adding, of add, to give by way of increased possession to anyone, to bestow on. Addable, addax, one of the largest African antelopes, Hippotragus/Oryx nasomaculatus. Addeme, to award, to adjudge. Addenda, of addendum. Addendum, a thing to be added, an appendix or addition. Adder, one who or that which adds, especially a machine for adding numbers. Adderfly/, a dragonfly. Adder's tongue, a genus of ferns, Ophioglossum. whose seeds are produced on a spike resembling a serpent's tongue. Adderwort, the common bistort or snakeweed, Polygonum bistorta. Addability, the quantity of being addable, capability of addition. Addable, capable of being added. Addis, see adds. Addict, addicted, devoted. Addicted, of addict. Addicting, of addict. Addictedness, the quality or state of being addicted, attachment. Addiction, the state of being addicted, devotion, inclination. Addison's disease, a morbid condition causing a peculiar brownish discoloration of the skin and thought at one time to be due to disease of the suprarenal capsules, two flat triangular bodies covering the upper part of the kidneys, but now known not to be dependent upon this causes exclusively. It is usually fatal. Additament, an addition or a thing added. Addition, the act of adding two or more things together, opposed to subtraction or diminution. Additional, added, supplemental, in the way of an addition. Additionally, by way of addition. Additionary, additional. Adventitious, additive, additive, proper to be added, positive, opposed to subtractive. Additory, tending to add, making some addition. Addle, liquid filth, mire. Addled, of addle, addling, of addle. Addle brain, alt of addle pate. Addle head, alt of addle pate. Addle pate, a foolish or dull-witted fellow. Addle brained, alt of addle pated. Addle headed, alt of addle pated. Addle pated, dull-witted, stupid. Addle patedness, stupidity. Addlings, earnings. Addoom, to adjudge. Adderst, set or turn back to back. Addressed, of address. Addressing, of address. Address, to aim, to direct. Addressee, one to whom anything is addressed. Addressian, the act of addressing or directing one's course. Adduced, of adduce. Adducing, of adduce. Adduce, to bring forward or offer as an argument, passage, or consideration which bears on a statement or case. To cite, to allege. Adducent, bringing together or towards a given point. A word applied to those muscles of the body which pull one part towards another. Opposed to abducent. Adducer, one who adduces. Adducible, capable of being adduced. Adduct, to draw towards a common center or a middle line. Adduction, the act of adducing or bringing forward. Adductive, adducing or bringing towards or to something. Adductor, a muscle which draws a limb or part of the body toward the middle line of the body or closes extended parts of the body. Opposed to abductor, as the adductor of the eye which turns the eye toward the nose. Adulce, to sweeten, to soothe. Adeem, to revoke as a legacy grant, etc., or to satisfy it by some other gift. Adelantadillo, a Spanish red wine made of the first ripe grapes. Adelantado, a governor of a province, a commander. Adelaster, a provisional name for a plant which has not had its flowers botanically examined and therefore has not been referred to its proper genus. Adeling, same as atheling. Adelocodonic, applied to sexual zooids of hydroids that have a sac-like form and do not become free. Opposed to phanerocodonic. Adelopod, an animal having feet that are not apparent. Adelphia, a brotherhood, or collection of stamens in a bundle. Used in composition as in the class names monadelphia, diadelphia, etc. Adelphous, having coalescent or clustered filaments. Set of stamens, as adelphous stamens. Usually in composition as monadelphous. Adempt, takes away. Ademption, the revocation or taking away of a grant, donation, legacy, or the like. Aden dash, alt of adeno dash, adeno dash, combining forms of the Greek word for gland, used in words relating to the structure, diseases, etc. of the glands. Adenalgia, alt of adenalgy, adenalgy, pain in a gland. Adeniform, shaped like a gland, adenoid. Adenitis, glandular inflammation. Adenographic, pertaining to adenography. Adenography, that part of anatomy which describes the glands. Adenoid, alt of adenoidal. Adenoidal, gland-like, glandular. Adenological, pertaining to adenology. Adenology, the part of physiology that treats of the glands. Adenophorus, producing glands. Adenophilus, having glands on the leaves. Adenos, like a gland, full of glands, glandulous, adenous. Adenotomic, pertaining to adenotomy. Adenotomy, dissection of or incision into a gland or glands. Adenous, same as adenos. Adepts, animal fat, lard. Adept, one fully skilled or well-versed in anything, a proficient, as adepts in philosophy. Adeption, an obtaining, attainment. Adeptist, a skilled alchemist. Adeptness, the quality of being adept, skill. Adequacy, the state or quality of being adequate, proportionate, or sufficient, a sufficiency for a particular purpose, as the adequacy of supply to the expenditure. Adequate, equal to some requirement, proportionate or correspondent, fully sufficient, as powers adequate to a great work, an adequate definition. Adequately, in an adequate manner. Adequateness, the quality of being adequate, suitableness, sufficiency, adequacy. Adequation, the act of equalizing, act or result of making adequate, an equivalent. Anosmy, the division or defective coherence of an organ that is usually entire. A decennarian, one who held the real presence of Christ's body in the Eucharist, but not by transubstantiation. Adfected, see affected 5. Adfiliated, see affiliated. Adfiliation, see affiliation. Adfluxion, see affluxion. Adhement, clinging as by hooks. Adhered, of adhere. Adhering, of adhere. Adhere, to stick fast or cleave as a glutinous substance does, to become joined or united, as wax to the finger. The lungs sometimes adhere to the pleura. Adherence, the quality or state of adhering. Adherency, the state or quality of being adherent. Adherence. Adherent, sticking, clinging, adhering. Adherently, in an adherent manner. Adherer, one who adheres, an adherent. Adhesion, the action of sticking, the state of being attached. Intimate union, as the adhesion of glue or of parts united by growth cement or the like. Adhesive, sticky, tenacious as glutinous substances. Adhesively, in an adhesive manner. Adhesiveness, the quality of sticking or adhering, stickiness, tenacity of union. Adhibit, to admit as a person or thing, to take in. Adhibition, the act of adhibiting, application, use. Ad hominem, a phrase applied to an appeal or argument addressed to the principles, interests, or passions of a man. Adhort, to exhort, to advise. Adhortation, advice, exhortation. Adhortatory, containing counsel or warning, hortatory, advisory. Adiabatic, not giving out or receiving heat. Adiactinic, not transmitting the actinic rays. Adiantum, a genus of ferns the leaves of which shed water, maidenhair. Also the black maidenhair, a species of spleenwort. Adiaphorism, religious indifference. Adiaphorist, one of the German Protestants who with Melanchthon held some opinions and ceremonies to be indifferent or non-essential, which Luther condemned as sinful or heretical. Adiaphoristic, pertaining to matters indifferent in faith and practice. Adiaphorite, same as adiaphorist. Adiaphorous, indifferent or neutral. Adiaphory, indifference. Adiathermic, not pervious to heat. Adieu, goodbye, farewell, an expression of kind wishes at parting. Adieus, of adieu. Adite, of adite. Ad infinitum, without limit, endlessly. Ad interim, meanwhile, temporary. Adipescent, becoming fatty. Adipic, pertaining to or derived from fatty or oily substances, applied to certain acids obtained from fats by the action of nitric acid. Adipocerate, to convert into adipocere. Adipoceration, the act or process of changing into adipocere. Adipocere, a soft, unctuous, or waxy substance of a light brown color into which the fat and muscle tissue of dead bodies sometimes are converted by long immersion in water or by burial in moist places. It is a result of fatty degeneration. Adipoceriform, having the form or appearance of adipocere, as an adipoceriform tumor. Adipocerous, like adipocere. Adipose, of or pertaining to animal fat, fatty. Adiposeness, alt of adiposity. Adiposity, the state of being fat, fatness. Adipose, fatty, adipose. Adipsis, quenching thirst as certain fruits. Adipsy, absence of thirst. Adit, an entrance or passage. Specifically, the nearly horizontal opening by which a mine is entered or by which water and ores are carried away, called also drift and tunnel. Adjacence, alt of adjacency. Adjacency, the state of being adjacent or contiguous, contiguity, as the adjacency of lands or buildings. Adjacent, lying near, close, or contiguous, neighboring, bordering on, as a field adjacent to the highway. Adjacently, so as to be adjacent. Adjunct, to add or annex, to join. Adjection, the act or mode of adding, also the thing added. Adjectional, pertaining to adjection, that is, or may be annexed. Adjectitious, added, additional. Adjectival, of or relating to the adjective, of the nature of an adjective, adjective. Adjectivally, as or in the manner of an adjective, adjectively. Adjective, added to a substantive as an attribute, of the nature of an adjunct, as an adjective word or sentence. Adjectived, of adjective, adjectiving, of adjective, adjectively, in the manner of an adjective, as a word used adjectively. Adjoined, of adjoin, adjoining, of adjoin, adjoin, to join or unite to lie contiguous to be in contact with, to attach, to append. Adjoinant, contiguous, adjoint, an adjunct, a helper. Adjourned, of adjourn, adjourning, of adjourn, adjourn, to put off or defer to another day or indefinitely, to postpone, to close or suspend for the day, commonly said of the meeting or the action of convened body, as to adjourn the meeting, to adjourn a debate. Adjournal, adjournment, postponement. Adjournment, the act of adjourning, the putting off till another day or time specified or without day. Adjudged, of a judge, adjudging, of a judge, a judge, to award judicially in the case of a controverted question, as the prize was adjudged to the victor. A judger, one who adjudges. A judgment, the act of adjudging, judicial decision, adjudication. Adjudicated, of adjudicate, adjudicating, of adjudicate, adjudicate, to adjudge, to try and determine as a court, to settle by judicial decree. Adjudication, the act of adjudicating, the act or process of trying and determining judicially. Adjudicative, adjudicating, adjudicator, one who adjudicates. Adjudicature, adjudication. Adjugate, to yoke to, adjuvant, help, support, also a helper. Adjuvant, a substance added to an immunogenic agent to enhance the production of antibodies. Adjunct, conjoined, attending, consequent. Adjunction, the act of joining, the thing joined or added. Adjunctive, joining, having the quality of joining, forming an adjunct. Adjunctively, in an adjunctive manner. Adjunctly, by way of addition or adjunct, in connection with. Adjuration, the act of adjuring, a solemn charging on oath or under the penalty of a curse, an earnest appeal. Adjuratory, containing an adjuration. Adjured, of adjure, adjuring, of adjure, adjure, to charge, bind, or command solemnly, as if under oath or under the penalty of a curse, to appeal to in the most solemn or impressive manner, to entreat earnestly. Adjurer, one who adjures. Adjusted, of adjust, adjusting, of adjust, adjust, to make exact, to fit, to make correspondent or conformable, to bring into proper relations, as to adjust a garment to the body or things to a standard. Adjustable, capable of being adjusted. Adjustage, adjustment, adjuster, one who or that which adjusts. Adjustive, tending to adjust. Adjustment, the act of adjusting or condition of being adjusted. Act of bringing into proper relations, regulation. Adjutage, same as adjutage. Adjutancy, the office of an adjutant. Adjutant, a helper, an assistant. Agitator, a corruption of agitator. Adjute, to add. Adjutor, a helper or assistant. Adjutory, serving to help or assist, helping. Adjutrix, a female helper or assistant. Allegation, a right formerly claimed by the states of the German Empire of joining their own ministers with those of the emperor in public treaties and negotiations to the common interest of the empire. Ad libitum, at one's pleasure, as one wishes. Adlocution, see allocution. Admarginate, to write in the margin. Admaxillary, near to the maxilla or jawbone. Admeasure, to measure. Admeasurer, one who admeasures. Admensuration, same as admeasurement. Adminical, help or support, an auxiliary. Adminicular, supplying help. Auxiliary, corroborative. Explanatory, as adminicular evidence. Adminiculary, adminicular. Administered, of administer. Administering, of administer. Administer, to manage or conduct as public affairs, to direct or superintend the execution, application, or conduct of, as to administer the government or the state. Administerial, pertaining to administration or to the executive part of government. Administrable, capable of being administered, as an administrable law. Administrant, executive, acting, managing affairs. Administrate, to administer. Administration, the act of administering, government of public affairs, the service rendered or duties assumed in conducting affairs, the conducting of any office or employment, direction, management. Administrative, pertaining to administration, administering, executive, as an administrative body, ability, or energy. Administrator, one who administers affairs, one who directs, manages, executes, or dispenses whether in civil, judicial, political, or ecclesiastical affairs. A manager. Administratorship, the position or office of an administrator. Administratrix, a woman who administers, ESP. One who administers the estate of an intestate or to whom letters of administration have been granted. A female administrator. Admirability, admirableness. Admirable, fitted to excite wonder, wonderful, marvelous. Admirableness, the quality of being admirable, wonderful excellence. Admirably, in an admirable manner. Admiral, a naval officer of the highest rank, a naval officer of high rank of which there are different grades. The chief gradations in rank are admiral, vice admiral, and rear admiral. The admiral is the commander-in-chief of a fleet or of fleets. Admiralship, the office or position of an admiral, also the naval skill of an admiral. Admiralties, of admiralty. Admiralty, the office or jurisdiction of an admiral. Admirance, admiration. Admiration, wonder, astonishment. Admirative, relating to or expressing admiration or wonder. Admired, of admire. Admiring, of admire. Admire, to regard with wonder or astonishment, to view with surprise, to marvel at. Admirer, one who admires, one who esteems or loves greatly. Admissibility, the quality of being admissible, admissibleness, as the admissibility of evidence. Admissible, entitled to be admitted or worthy of being admitted, that may be allowed or conceded, allowable, as the supposition is hardly admissible. Admission, the act or practice of admitting. Admissive, implying an admission, tending to admit. Admissory, pertaining to admission. Admitted, of admit. Admitting, of admit. admit, to suffer to enter, to grant entrance whether into a place or into the mind or consideration, to receive, to take, as they were into his house, to admit a serious thought into the mind, to admit evidence in the trial of a cause. Admittable, admissible, admittance, the act of admitting, admitter, the certificate of admission given in some American colleges. Admittedly, confessedly, admitter, one who admits. Admix, to mingle with something else, to mix. Admixtion, a mingling of different things, admixture. Admixture, the act of mixing, mixture. Admonished, of admonish. Admonishing, of admonish. Admonish, to warn or notify of a fault, to reprove gently or kindly but seriously, to exhort. Admonisher, one who admonishes. Admonishment, admonition. Admonition, gentle or friendly reproof. Counseling against a fault or error. Expression of authoritative advice, friendly caution or warning. Admonitioner, admonisher. Admonitive, admonitory. Admonitor, admonisher, monitor. Admonitorial, admonitory. Admonitory, that conveys admonition, warning, or reproving, as an admonitory glance. Admonitrix, a female admonitor. Admirtization, the reducing or lands or tenements to mortmain. See mortmain. Admove, to move or conduct to or toward. Adnascent, growing to or on something else. Adnate, grown to congenitally. Adnation, the adhesion or cohesion of different floral verticils or sets of organs. Adnominal, pertaining to an adnoun, adjectival, attached to a noun. Adnoun, an adjective or attribute. Adnubulated, clouded, obscured. Ado, to do, in doing, as there is nothing ado. Adobe, an unburnt brick dried in the sun, also used as an adjective as an adobe house in Texas or New Mexico. Adolescence, the state of growing up from childhood to manhood or womanhood. Youth, or the period of life between puberty and maturity, generally considered to be in the male sex from 14 to 21, sometimes used with reference to the lower animals. Adolescency, the quality of being adolescent, youthfulness. Adolescent, growing, advancing from childhood to maturity. Adonian, pertaining to Adonis, Adunic. Adunic, relating to Adonis famed for his beauty. Adonis, a youth beloved by Venus for his beauty. He was killed in the chase by a wild boar. Adunist, one who maintains that points of the Hebrew word translated Jehovah are really the vowel points of the word Adonai. See Jehovist. Adonais, to beautify, to dandify. Adour, alt of adouers. Adouers, at the door, of the door, as out adouers. Adopted, of adopt. Adopting, of adopt. Adopt, to take by choice into relationship as child, heir, friend, citizen, etc. SP, to take voluntarily, a child of other parents. To be in the place of, or as one's own child. Adoptable, capable of being adopted. Adopter, one who adopts. Adoption, the act of adopting or state of being adopted. Voluntary acceptance of a child of other parents to be the same as one's own child. Adoptionist, one of a sect which maintained that Christ was the Son of God not by nature, but by adoption. Adoptius, adopted, adoptive, pertaining to adoption, made or acquired by adoption, fitted to adopt, as an adoptive father and child, an adoptive language. Adorability, adorableness, adorable, deserving to be adored, worthy of divine honors. Adorableness, the quality of being adorable or worthy of adoration. Adorably, in an adorable manner. Adoration, the act of paying honor to a divine being, the worship paid to God, the act of addressing as a god. Adoring, of adore, adore, to worship with profound reverence, to pay divine honors to honor as deity or as divine. Adornment, the act of adoring, adoration. Adorer, one who adores, a worshiper, one who admires or loves greatly, an ardent admirer. Adoringly, with adoration. Adorned, of adorn, adorning, of adorn, adorn, to deck or dress with ornaments, to embellish, to set off to advantage, to render pleasing or attractive. Adornation, adornment, adorner, he who or that which adorns, a beautifier. Adorningly, by adorning decoratively. Adornment, an adorning, an ornament, a decoration. Adosculation, impregnation by external contact without intermission. Adown, from a higher to a lower situation, downward, down to or on the ground. Adpress, see oppressed. Adread, put in dread, afraid. Adragant, gum tragacanth. Adread, to dread. Adreamed, visited by a dream, used in the phrase to be adreamed to dream. Adrenal, suprarenal. Adrian, pertaining to the Adriatic Sea, as Adrian billows. Adriatic, of or pertaining to a sea so named the northwestern part of which is known as the Gulf of Venice. Adrift, floating at random, in a drifting condition, at the mercy of wind and waves. Also figure, adrip, in a dripping state, as leaves all adrip. Adragate, to adopt, a person who is his own master. Adragation, a kind of adoption in ancient Rome. See irrigation. Adroit, dexterous in the use of the hands or in the exercise of the mental faculties, exhibiting skill and readiness in avoiding danger or escaping difficulty. Adroitly, in an adroit manner. Adroitness, the quality of being adroit, skill and readiness, dexterity. Adry, in a dry or thirsty condition. Adventitious, supplemental, additional, adventitious, ascititious. Adscript, held to service as attached to the soil, set of feudal serfs. Adscriptive, attached or annexed to the glebe or estate and transferable with it. Adsignification, additional signification. Adsignify, to denote additionally. Adstrict, see a strict and astriction. Adstrictory, see astrictory. Adstringent, see astringent. Adularia, a transparent or translucent variety of common feldspar or orthoclase, which often shows pearly opalescent reflections, called by lapidaries moonstone. Adulate, to flatter in a servile way. Adulation, servile flattery, praise in excess or beyond what is merited. Adulator, a servile or hypocritical flatterer. Adulatory, containing excessive praise or compliment, servilely praising, flattering, as an adulatory address. Adulatress, a woman who flatters with servility. Adult, having arrived at maturity or to full size and strength, matured, as an adult person or plant, an adult ape, an adult age. Adulter, to commit adultery, to pollute. Adulterant, that which is used to adulterate anything. Adulterated, of adulterate. Adulterating, of adulterate. Adulterate, to defile by adultery. Adulteration, the act of adulterating, corruption or debasement, ESP of food or drink, by foreign mixture. Adulterator, one who adulterates or corrupts. Adulterer, a man who commits adultery, a married man who has sexual intercourse with a woman not his wife. Adulteress, a woman who commits adultery. Adulterine, proceeding from adulterous intercourse. Hence, spurious, without the support of law, illegal. Adulterize, to commit adultery. Adulteress, guilty of or given to adultery, pertaining to adultery, illicit. Adulterously, in an adulterous manner. Adulteries, of adultery. Adultery, the unfaithfulness of a married person to the marriage bed. Sexual intercourse by a married man with another than his wife, or voluntary sexual intercourse by a married woman with another than her husband. Adultness, the state of being adult. Adumbrant, giving a faint shadow or slight resemblance, shadowing forth. Adumbrate, to give a faint shadow or slight representation of, to outline, to shadow forth. Adumbration, the act of adumbrating or shadowing forth. Adumbrative, faintly representing, typical. Adunation, a uniting, union. Adunk, alt of adunk. Adunk, hooked, as a parrot has an adunk bill. Aduncity, curvature inwards, hookedness. Aduncus, curved inwards, hooked. Adure, to burn up. Adust, inflamed or scorched, fiery. Adusted, burnt, adust. Adustable, that may be burnt. Adustion, the act of burning or heating to dryness, the state of being thus heated or dried. Ad valorem, a term used to denote a duty or charge laid upon goods at a certain rate % upon their value as stated in their invoice, in opposition to a specific sum upon a given quantity or number, as an ad valorem duty of 20%. Advanced, of advance. Advancing, of advance. Advance, to bring forward, to move towards the van or front, to make to go on. Advancement, the act of advancing or the state of being advanced, progression, improvement, furtherance, promotion to a higher place or dignity, as the advancement of learning. Advancer, one who advances, a promoter. Advansive, tending to advance. Advantage, any condition, circumstance, opportunity, or means particularly favorable to success or to any desired end. Benefit, as the enemy had the advantage of a more elevated position. Advantaged, of advantage. Advantaging, of advantage. Advantageable, advantageous. Advantageous, being of advantage, conferring advantage, gainful, profitable, useful, beneficial, as an advantageous position. Trade is advantageous to a nation. Advantageously, profitably, with advantage. Advantageousness, profitableness. Advene, to accede or come. To be added to something or become a part of it, though not essential. Advenient, coming from outward causes, superadded. Advent, the period including the 4 Sundays before Christmas. Adventist, one of a religious body embracing several branches who look for the proximate personal coming of Christ, called also Second Adventists. Adventitious, added extrinsically, not essentially inherent, accidental or causal, additional, supervenient, foreign. Adventive, accidental, adventual, relating to the season of Advent. Adventure, that which happens without design, chance, hazard, hap, hence chance of danger or loss. Adventured, of adventure. Adventuring, of adventure. Adventureful, given to adventure. Adventurer, one who adventures, as the merchant adventurers, one who seeks his fortune in new and hazardous or perilous enterprises. Adventuresome, full of risk, adventurous, venturesome. Adventurous, a female adventurer, a woman who tries to gain position by equivocal means. Adventurous, inclined to adventure, willing to incur hazard, prone to embark in hazardous enterprise, rashly daring. Applied to persons. Adventurously, in an adventurous manner, venturesomely, boldly, daringly. Adventurousness, the quality or state of being adventurous, daring, venturesomeness. Adverb, a word used to modify the sense of a verb participle adjective or other adverb and usually placed near it. As he writes well, paper extremely white. Adverbial, of or pertaining to an adverb, of the nature of an adverb, as an adverbial phrase or form. Adverbiality, the quality of being adverbial. Adverbialize, to give the force or form of an adverb to. Adverbially, in the manner of an adverb. Adversaria, a miscellaneous collection of notes, remarks, or selections. A commonplace book, also commentaries or notes. Adversarious, hostile. Adversaries, of adversary. Adversary, one who is turned against another or others with a design to oppose or resist them, a member of an opposing or hostile party, an opponent, an antagonist, an enemy, a foe. Adversative, expressing contrariety, opposition, or antithesis, as an adversative conjunction, but however yet etc., an adversative force. Adverse, acting against or in a contrary direction, opposed, contrary, opposite, conflicting, as adverse winds, an adverse party, a spirit adverse to distinctions of caste. Adversely, in an adverse manner, inimically, unfortunately, contrariwise. Adverseness, the quality or state of being adverse, opposition. Adversifoliate, alt of adversifolious. Adversifolious, having opposite leaves as plants which have the leaves so arranged on the stem. Adversion, a turning towards, attention. Adversities, of adversity. Adversity, opposition, contrariety. Adverted, of advert. Adverting, of advert. Advert, to turn the mind or attention, to refer, to take heed or notice, with to, as he adverted to what was said. Advertence, alt of advertency. Advertency, the act of adverting of the quality of being advertent, attention, notice, regard, heedfulness. Advertent, attentive, heedful, regardful. Advertised, of advertise. Advertising, of advertise. Advertise, to give notice to inform or apprise, to notify, to make known, hence to warn, often followed by of before the subject of information, as to advertise a man of his loss. Advertiser, one who or that which advertises. Advice, an opinion recommended or offered as worthy to be followed. Counsel, advisability, the quality of being advisable, advisableness. Advisable, proper to be advised or to be done. Expedient, prudent. Advisableness, the quality of being advisable or expedient. Expediency, advisability. Advisably, with advice, wisely. Advised, of advise. Advising, of advise. Advise, to give advice to offer an opinion as worthy or expedient to be followed, to counsel, to warn. Advisedly, circumspectly, deliberately, leisurely. Advisedness, deliberate consideration, prudent procedure, caution. Advisement, counsel, advice, information. Advisor, one who advises. Advisorship, the office of an advisor. Adviso, advice, counsel, suggestion, also a dispatch or advice boat. Advisory, having power to advise, containing advice. As an advisory council, their opinion is merely advisory. Advocacy, the act of pleading for or supporting, work of advocating, intercession. Advocate, one who pleads the cause of another. Specifically, one who pleads the cause of another before a tribunal or judicial court. A counselor. Advocated, of advocate. Advocating, of advocate. Advocateship, office or duty of an advocate. Advocation, the act of advocating or pleading, plea. Advocacy. Advocatory, of or pertaining to an advocate. Advoke, to summon, to call. Advolution, a rolling toward something. Advouterer, an adulterer. Advoutress, an adulteress. Advoutery, alt of advoutry. Advoutery, adultery. Advowee, one who has an advowson. Advowson, the right of presenting to a vacant benefice or living in the church. Originally the relation of a patron advocatus, or protector of a benefice, and thus privileged to nominate or present to it. Advoyer, see avoyer. Adward, award. Adonamia, considerable debility of the vital powers as in typhoid fever. Adonamic, pertaining to or characterized by debility of the vital powers, weak. Adynomy, adonamia. Adida, of addendum. Addendum, the innermost sanctuary or shrine in ancient temples whence oracles were given. Hence, a private chamber, a sanctum. Adze, alt of adze. Adze, a carpenter's or cooper's tool formed with a thin arching blade set at right angles to the handle. It is used for chipping or slicing away the surface of wood. Ae, alt of ae. Esidia, of Esidium. Esidium, a form of fruit in the cycle of development of the rusts or brands, an order of fungi formerly considered independent plants. Aedile, a magistrate in ancient Rome who had the superintendence of public buildings, highways, shows, etc., hence a municipal officer. Aedileship, the office of an aedile. Aegean, of or pertaining to the sea or arm of the Mediterranean Sea east of Greece. Sea archipelago. Aegicrania, sculptured ornaments used in classical architecture representing rams' heads or skulls. Aegilops, an ulcer or fistula in the inner corner of the eye. Aegis, a shield or protective armor, applied in mythology to the shield of Jupiter which he gave to Minerva. Also figure, a shield, a protection. Egophony, same as egophony. Egrotat, a medical certificate that a student is ill. Aeneid, the great epic poem of Virgil of which the hero is Aeneas. Aeneas, colored like bronze. Aeolian, of or pertaining to Aeolia or Aeolis in Asia Minor, colonized by the Greeks, or to its inhabitants. Aeolic, as the Aeolian dialect. Aeolic, Aeolian one, as the Aeolic dialect, the Aeolic mode. Aeolipile, alt of Aeolipile. Aeolipile, an apparatus consisting chiefly of a closed vessel, as a globe or cylinder, with one or more projecting bent tubes through which steam is made to pass from the vessel, causing it to revolve. Aelotropic, exhibiting differences of quality or property in different directions, not isotropic. Aelotropy, difference of quality or property in different directions. Aeolus, the god of the winds. Aeon, a period of immeasurable duration, also an emanation of the deity. See Aeon, Aeonian, eternal, everlasting. Epiornis, a gigantic bird found fossil in Madagascar. Aerated, of aerate, aerating, of aerate, aerate, to combine or charge with gas, usually with carbonic acid gas, formerly called fixed air. Aeration, exposure to the free action of the air, airing, as aeration of soil, of spawn, etc. Aerator, that which supplies with air. ESP, an apparatus used for charging mineral waters with gas and in making soda water. Aerial, of or pertaining to the air or atmosphere, inhabiting or frequenting the air, produced by or found in the air, performed in the air, as aerial regions or currents. Aeriality, the state of being aerial, unsubstantiality. Aerially, like or from the air, in an aerial manner. Airy, the nest of a bird of prey, as of an eagle or hawk, also a brood of such birds. Airy. Shack, also figure, a human residence or resting place perched like an eagle's nest. Aeriferous, conveying or containing air, air-bearing, as the windpipe is an aeriferous tube. Aerification, the act of combining air with another substance or the state of being filled with air. Aeriform, having the form or nature of air or of an elastic fluid, gaseous. Hence figure, unreal. Aerify, to infuse air into, to combine air with. Aerodash, the combining form of the Greek word meaning air. Aerobes, microorganisms which live in contact with the air and need oxygen for their growth, as the microbacteria which form on the surface of putrefactive fluids. Aerobiotic, related to or of the nature of Arabes, as aerobiotic plants which live only when supplied with free oxygen. Aerocyst, one of the air cells of algals. Aerodynamic, pertaining to the force of air in motion. Aerodynamics, the science which treats of the air and other gaseous bodies under the action of force and of their mechanical effects. Aerognosy, the science which treats of the properties of the air and of the part it plays in nature. Aerographer, one versed in aerography, an aerologist. Aerographic, alt of aerographical. Aerographical, pertaining to aerography, aerological. Aerography, a description of the air or atmosphere, aerology. Aerohydrodynamic, acting by the force of air and water, as an aerohydrodynamic wheel. Aerolite, a stone or metallic mass which has fallen to the earth from distant space. A meteorite, a meteoric stone. Aerolith, same as a/rolite. Aerolithology, the science of aerolites. Aerolytic, of or pertaining to aerolites. Meteoric, as aerolytic iron. Aerologic, alt of aerological. Aerological, of or pertaining to aerology. Aerologist, one versed in aerology. Aerology, that department of physics which treats of the atmosphere. Aeromancy, divination from the state of the air or from atmospheric substances, also forecasting changes in the weather. Aerometer, an instrument for ascertaining the weight or density of air and gases. Aerometric, of or pertaining to aerometry, as aerometric investigations. Aerometry, the science of measuring the air, including the doctrine of its pressure, elasticity, rarefaction, and condensation. Pneumatics. Aeronaut, an aerial navigator, a balloonist. Aeronautic, alt of aeronautical. Aeronautical, pertaining to aeronautics or aerial sailing. Aeronautics, the science or art of ascending and sailing in the air as by means of a balloon, aerial navigation, ballooning. Aerophobia, alt of aerophobia. Aerophobia, dread of a current of air. Aerophyte, a plant growing entirely in the air and receiving its nourishment from it. An air plant or epiphyte. Aeroplane, a flying machine or a small plane for experiments on flying which floats in the air only when propelled through it. Aeroscope, an apparatus designed for collecting spores, germs, bacteria, etc., suspended in the air. Aeroscopy, the observation of the state and variations of the atmosphere. Eros, of the nature of or like copper, brassy. Aerosiderite, a mass of meteoric iron. Aerosphere, the atmosphere. Aerostat, a balloon. Aerostatic, alt of aerostatical. Aerostatical, of or pertaining to aerostatics. Pneumatic. Aerostatics, the science that treats of the equilibrium of elastic fluids or that of bodies sustained in them. Hence it includes aeronautics. Aerostation, aerial navigation, the art of raising and guiding balloons in the air. Aeruginous, of the nature or color of verdigris or the rust of copper. Aerigo, the rust of any metal ESP of brass or copper, verdigris. Airy, an airy. Aesculapian, pertaining to Aesculapius or to the healing art, medical, medicinal. Aesculapius, the god of medicine, hence a physician. Esculin, same as Esculin. Aesopian, of or pertaining to Aesop or in his manner. Aesopic, alt of Aesopic, Aesopic, same as Aesopian. Aesthesia, perception by the senses, feeling, the opposite of anesthesia. Aesthesiometer, alt of aesthesiometer. Aesthesiometer, an instrument to measure the degree of sensation by determining at how short a distance two impressions upon the skin can be distinguished, and thus to determine whether the condition of tactile sensibility is normal or altered. Aesthesis, sensuous perception. Aesthesotic, conveying sensory or afferent impulses, set of nerves. Aesthete, one who makes much or overmuch of aesthetics. Aesthetic, alt of aesthetical, aesthetical, of or pertaining to aesthetics, versed in aesthetics, as aesthetics studies emotions, ideas, persons, etc. Aesthetican, one versed in aesthetics. Aestheticism, the doctrine of aesthetics, aesthetic principles, devotion to the beautiful in nature and art. Aesthetics, alt of aesthetics. Aesthetics, the theory or philosophy of taste, the science of the beautiful in nature and art. ESP, that which treats of the expression and embodiment of beauty by art. Aesthophysiology, the science of sensation in relation to nervous action. Aestival, of or belonging to the summer, as aestival diseases. Estivate, to spend the summer. Estivation, the state of torpidity induced by the heat and dryness of summer, as in certain snails, opposed to hibernation. Estuary, see estuary. Estuous, glowing, agitated as with heat. Ethiogamous, propagated in an unusual way, cryptogamous. Ether, see ether. Ethiops mineral, same as Ethiops mineral. Ethogen, a compound of nitrogen and boro/ which when heated before the blowpipe gives a brilliant phosphorescent, boric nitride. Ethrioscope, an instrument consisting in part of a differential thermometer. It is used for measuring changes of temperature produced by different conditions of the sky, as when clear or clouded. Etiological, pertaining to etiology, assigning a cause. Etiology, the science, doctrine, or demonstration of causes. ESP, the investigation of the causes of any disease, the science of the origin and development of things. Etites, see eaglestone, afar, at to or from a great distance, far away, often used with from preceding or off following. As he was seen from afar, I saw him afar off. Afeared, afraid. Afer, the southwest wind. Affability, the quality of being affable, readiness to converse, courteousness in receiving others and in conversation, complaisant behavior. Affable, easy to be spoken to or addressed, receiving others kindly and conversing with them in a free and friendly manner. Courteous, sociable. Affableness, affability. Affably, in an affable manner, courteously. Affabrous, executed in a workmanlike manner, ingeniously made. Affair, that which is done or is to be done. Matter, concern, as a difficult affair to manage. Business of any kind, commercial, professional, or public. Affamish, to afflict with or perish from hunger. Affamishment, starvation. Affatuate, to infatuate. Affear, to frighten. Affected, of effect. Affecting, of effect. Affect, to act upon, to produce an effect or change upon. Affectation, an attempt to assume or exhibit what is not natural or real, false display, artificial show. Affectationist, one who exhibits affectation, affectedly, in an affected manner, hypocritically, with more show than reality. Affectedness, affectation, affector, one who affects, assumes, pretends, or strives after. Affectability, the quality or state of being affectable. Affectable, that may be affected. Affectingly, in an affecting manner, is a manner to excite emotions. Affection, the act of affecting or acting upon, the state of being affected. Affectional, of or pertaining to the affections, as affectional impulses, an affectional nature. Affectionate, having affection or warm regard. Loving, fond, as an affectionate brother. Affectionate, disposed, inclined. Affectionately, with affection, lovingly, fondly, tenderly, kindly. Affectionateness, the quality of being affectionate. Fondness, affection. Affectioned, disposed. Affective, tending to affect, affecting. Effectively, in an effective manner, impressively, emotionally. Affectuous, full of passion or emotion, earnest. Affear, to confirm, to assure. Affearer, alt of affearer. Affearer, one who affears. Affearment, the act of affearing. Afferent, bearing or conducting inwards to a part or organ, opposed to efferent, as afferent vessels. Afferent nerves which convey sensations from the external organs to the brain. Affettuoso, with feeling. Affiance, plighted faith, marriage contract or promise. Affianced, of affiance. Affiancing, of affiance. Affiancer, one who makes a contract of marriage between two persons. Affiant, one who makes an affidavit. Affidavit, a sworn statement in writing. A declaration in writing signed and made upon oath before an authorized magistrate. Affile, to polish. Affiliable, capable of being affiliated to or on or connected with an origin. Affiliated, of affiliate. Affiliating, of affiliate. Affiliate, to adopt, to receive into a family as a son. Hence to bring or receive into close connection, to ally. Affiliation, adoption, association or reception as a member in or of the same family or society. Affinal, related by marriage, from the same source. Affine, to refine. Affined, joined in affinity or by any tie. Affinitative, of the nature of affinity. Affinitive, closely connected as by affinity. Affinities, of affinity. Affinity, relationship by marriage, as between a husband and his wife's blood relations, or between a wife and her husband's blood relations. In contradistinction to consanguinity or relationship by blood, followed by with to or between. Affirmed, of affirm. Affirming, of affirm. Affirm, to assert or confirm as a judgment, decree, or order brought before an appellate court for review. Affirmable, capable of being affirmed, asserted, or declared, followed by of, as an attribute affirmable of every just man. Affirmance, confirmation, ratification, confirmation of a voidable act. Affirmant, one who affirms, or asserts. Affirmation, confirmation of anything established, ratification, as the affirmation of a law. Affirmative, confirmative, ratifying, as an act affirmative of common law. Affirmatively, in an affirmative manner, on the affirmative side of a question, in the affirmative, opposed to negatively. Affirmatory, giving affirmation, assertive, affirmative. Affirmer, one who affirms. Affixed, of affix. Affixing, of affix. Affix, to subjoin annex or add at the close or end, to append to fix to any part of, as to affix a syllable to a word, to affix a seal to an instrument, to affix one's name to a writing. Affixes, of affix. Affixion, a fixture. A fixture, the act of affixing or the state of being affixed. Attachment. Afflation, a blowing or breathing on. Inspiration. Afflatus, a breath or blast of wind. Afflicted, of afflict. Afflicting, of afflict. Afflict, to strike or cast down, to overthrow. Afflictedness, the state of being afflicted, affliction. Afflictor, one who afflicts. Affliction, the cause of continued pain of body or mind as sickness, losses, etc., an instance of grievous distress, a pain or grief. Afflictionless, free from affliction. Afflictive, giving pain, causing continued or repeated pain or grief, distressing. Afflictively, in an afflictive manner. Affluence, a flowing to or towards, a concourse, an influx. Affluency, affluence, affluent, flowing to, flowing abundantly. Affluently, abundantly, copiously. Affluentness, great plenty. Afflux, a flowing towards, that which flows to, as an afflux of blood to the head.